Have you ever made a mistake? Have you ever found sometimes that making a mistake can be very costly? Well, in retirement planning, I'm going to talk today about the 3 greatest mistakes you can make, so stay tuned.
Retiring Well, helping you make smart decisions with your money so you can live a better life. Today is the day you can take back control of your money. Retiring Well, where we believe your best is yet to come.
Hi, welcome to today's show. Listen, today we're talking about the 3 greatest mistakes you can make in retirement planning. So right now I want to talk about the number 1 mistake you can make. And folks, that's assuming that your advisor is working in your best interests. Again, I'm going to repeat that. The greatest mistake you can make is assuming that your advisor is actually working in your best interests. Now, why do I say that? Well, listen, the Obama administration back in 2010 had proposed some legislation that would make all those in the financial service industry meet what they call a fiduciary standard. Now, all that means is that's a standard in which the advisor had to act in your best interests. Now think about that. Why would they even have to legislate that if all advisors were working in your best interests? Okay? So in 2010, they proposed this legislation. Now, if you didn't know it, the reason they were doing this is because we actually have a retirement crisis in this country. Recent statistics show that 61% of the boomer generation that was supposed to be saving for retirement most have no pensions, have less than $50,000 in savings. So what are they relying on? They're predominantly relying on Social Security. This is going to create a crisis. And the government was basically trying to step in and say, listen, you large insurance companies and big financial service firms, you know, these fees you've been charging, well, 1%, maybe 2% of that could have been very helpful to a lot of people coming up to retirement at this point. So they legislated or recommended this new fiduciary standard, immediately got shut down because the large insurance companies, large financial service firms are basically saying, listen, if you impose that standard of care on us, we're not going to be able to help the little guy. What were they basically saying? We're not going to be able to charge enough to even want to deal with them. Okay? So this then got proposed again about 5 years later. This time with the help of AARP, it made it through. And then when the new administration came in, they put a delay on it because there was some confusion as to what it was going to look like. And then this law kind of came up through the appellate court and in March 2018 got shut down. But the point being, as I said earlier, why was the government even looking at this when if advisors are working in your best interests anyway, it wouldn't even be necessary? The other thing you want to look at is you have to understand that an advisor is making his money somewhere, right? He has a conflict of interest in that regard because he's making money on one hand and then he's giving you advice on another. So you want to make sure that the advice he's given you is in your best interest and not to their interest, right? Well, a lot of people will say, Larry, what do we care about fees, right? If they're making money, I would expect them to make money as long as they get me a greater net benefit, right? So they make 1%, 2%, 3%, but if I get a greater net benefit of 6, 7, 8%, why am I unhappy? I would agree, all right? But here's what you got to understand. If they're going to charge those fees, what are you getting for those fees, okay? What's the education you're getting? All right. Now at Centennial Wealth, we meet with our clients on a quarterly basis, and we actually give them a quarterly market update. We talk to them about what's going on, what are the fundamentals of the economy, what are the things they need to be paying attention to, what are all the financial instruments that are out there, and what are the pros and cons with them. You know, what is it that they deem is in their best interest based on a lot of good, what we call good education. The other thing you want to look at is if they're charging you fees, what kind of communication are you getting? You know, I can't tell you how many people come into our office and the number 1 complaint we hear from most people is, my advisor doesn't call me. I don't get any reports, they don't talk to me. If anything's going to happen, it's got to come from me. So if they're charging you sufficient fees and you're getting no communication as to where you're at in your portfolio and investments, how happy am I with that? The other thing I want to be looking at when it comes to fees is what kind of services am I getting? Is it just investment management they're providing? Or are there other things they're providing that I don't know about? Well, in the next segment, I'm going to talk about these other services that you might want to look at. So stay tuned.
Today's retirement challenges can be mastered. Knowledge is power because you can confidently plan ahead and make educated financial decisions for a successful and comfortable retirement. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. And we invite you to an informative and exciting live event with a complimentary gourmet dinner. You'll learn highlights of the new Tax Reform Act, the difference between the fiduciary and suitability standard of care, how an IRA gets taxed to a surviving spouse, how two similar portfolios can end up with two drastically different results, what a bull market is and how long it can last, and much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, June 4th at Big Buck Brewery in Gaylord. Wednesday, June 5th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Tuesday, June 11th at the Evergreen Resort in Cadillac. Or Thursday, June 13th at Stafford's Bayview Inn in Petoskey. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important live event. Educated financial decisions. Call 888-608-5825 today.
When it's time to retire, you've probably worked for 30 or 40 years or more potentially. Have you ever thought about, though, in retirement, that's like 20 to 30 years of unemployment. Where is your paycheck going to come from? How are you going to sustain your lifestyle in retirement? And what is your plan to do that? If you don't have this plan, Centennial Wealth Advisory would love to sit down with you and try to help you walk through those matters, develop a solid income plan rolled in with a tax plan, and have your estate plan all cohesively working together so you can live a comfortable retirement.
Hi, welcome back. Okay, today we're talking about the 3 greatest mistakes you can make in your retirement planning. Now, in the last segment, I told you that probably the greatest mistake you can make is assuming your advisor is actually acting in your best interests. Sometimes they may not be. And remember, the government was going after this, going to force that on them because there's a lot of people that that's not necessarily happening for. So very careful, make sure you're wary of that. But the second greatest mistake you can make is basically not understanding all the other facets of your retirement planning. A lot of times we'll go to the advisors and the only thing we're looking at is investment management. Now, obviously, this is a big thing. We want them managing a portfolio. We want them in managing our investments. But what are all the other things that they also need to be concerned about, okay? Well, number one is, how is my income going to get taxed? If I've got a portfolio made up of IRAs, Roth IRAs, maybe after-tax money or non-retirement money, where am I going to, what bucket am I going to pull from income? Well, it's going to depend, right, on what kind of pension income I might have, what kind of Social Security income I have. Maybe I'm still working, right, as I'm receiving some of these benefits. So what bucket am I going to pull from? Well, how that money is going to get taxed is very important. It should be a big consideration in the overall retirement planning. So not considering how the advisor is going to handle that situation is very important. How about my IRAs, those qualified plans that I've been putting into over the years, right? I've gotten a tax deduction as I put into those plans, all right? That money is grown tax deferred, meaning as it's grown, I don't have to pay tax on the growth. But what is the negative with them? One day I'm going to have to take money out of those plans, and now it's going to be taxed, right? So I have a partner in that account, right? Because now every dollar I take out, who's there to take their share? Uncle Sam, possibly state of Michigan. I have a partner in those accounts. So what's my strategy to try to buy my partner out, get him out at the cheapest possible level? Well, is that being considered in any kind of a retirement plan? If I've just got an advisor who's just looking at the investment management, are they considering how my income is going to get taxed, what bucket I need to be pulled from? Are they providing any kind of an IRA exit strategy for me? Top consideration. Now another one you'll see a lot of advisors do, they'll produce what they call an income plan. Right? This is a detailed report showing how you're going to be able to take a certain amount of income out over your lifetime and hopefully not run out of money. That would be the whole goal, right? To live long enough that your money outlives you. Well, here's the problem with a lot of these income plans. They will make an assumption that your funds or your money is going to grow at a certain level. Well, what if they make an assumption that your money is going to grow at, let's say, 5, 6, 7% consistently every year? And that's the assumption that they're putting into this plan. And all of a sudden you run into a 2008, market drops to half its value. How does that affect the income plan? Think about that. How does that affect your plan? If I'm taking money out of my portfolio year after year for income, because now I'm in retirement, and now that account drops to half its value, now how likely is it that my money's going to outlive me? Very, very much a concern. And for an advisor who's dealing with somebody soon to be retired or retired, that should be a main concern, is what's going to happen when markets are not cooperating? How are you going to protect me? Okay? Now, there's other facets of a retirement plan. How about the estate planning aspect? You know, do all my assets know where they're going to go? You know, how have I set my beneficiary designations on my investment accounts? If I have an IRA, is it best to go to a trust if I have one, or directly to the heirs? These are all facets of a retirement income plan that must be considered along with the investment management. So I just reach out to you and you say, listen, if you're not getting that from your advisor, give us a call. We'd be glad to sit down, look at your situation, see if there's any of these other areas that are not being served, and see if there's anything we can do to help. Listen, markets are cyclical. You'll have the long periods where the economy is in expansion, and then it's typically followed by contraction. What things go up and sometimes things go down. That's the way the markets roll. But what is not acceptable is when there's clear evidence that the market is maybe heading into recession or a slowdown, and most advisors are sitting back saying, hey, just stay the course. Listen, most are trained to follow what's called a buy and hold strategy. They figure that if they just get you well diversified, then when you hit periods like that, you should just hold the line, right? Unacceptable. If you look back in 2008 when the market dropped to half its value, it took almost 5-6 years to get back to where you were at. And if you're somebody near retirement, in retirement, possibly taking income from that portfolio, that's not going to work. So when there's clear evidence that we're entering into recession, we believe adjustments are necessary. So I encourage you, when times are good right now, take the opportunity, give us a call, let us sit down with you, see how you're positioned to make sure that that can't happen to you. So give us a call.
Today's retirement challenges can be mastered. Knowledge is power, because you can confidently plan ahead and make educated financial decisions for a successful and comfortable retirement. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. And we invite you to an informative and exciting live event with a complimentary gourmet dinner. You'll learn highlights of the new Tax Reform Act, the difference between the fiduciary and suitability standard of care, how an IRA gets taxed to a surviving spouse, how two similar portfolios can end up with two drastically different results, what a bull market is and how long it can last, and much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, June 4th at Big Buck Brewery in Gaylord. Wednesday, June 5th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Tuesday, June 11th at the Evergreen Resort in Cadillac. Or Thursday, June 13th at Stafford's Bayview Inn in Petoskey. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important live event. Educated Financial Decisions. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Welcome back. Now listen, today we're talking about the 3 greatest mistakes you can make in your retirement planning. I talked about in the first segment, the greatest mistake that you can make is assuming that your advisor is actually working in your best interests. Remember, they make money. So you want to make sure that the advice they're giving you isn't in conflict with how much money they make with the advice they're giving you, right? The second greatest mistake you can make is not considering all the other facets in your income retirement planning. All advisors will typically work with the investment management piece because that's where they're making their money, right? But what about all the other things that are important, such as tax planning, estate planning, long-term care, health care planning? How about that income planning? Making sure that your money is going to outlive you. These are all very important aspects, all come with their own considerations. So they all have to work together in the overall construction retirement plan. So again, not considering all those other facets, you could be selling yourself short, per se. Now, I want to now give you what's probably the third greatest mistake you can make, and that's not accounting for market downturns. And when I say downturns, I'm talking about significant downturns, like 2000 through 2002, when the market dropped to half its value in a 2.5-year period. How about 2008, when the market dropped to half its value again, but this time it only took 15 months, bottoming out in March of 2009. All right, not considering that you can have significant market downturns like that in your overall income plan or retirement plan is a great mistake that you don't want to make. Now I want to show you something. I want to show you why this is so important. I want to say, take a person who has $500,000 in their retirement savings. Now they want to take 5% out for income. Now folks, this 5% came out of the 80s and 90s. It's what they called the 4 or 5% rule. But all it was what they considered a safe withdrawal rate, an amount by which you can pull from your retirement savings and maintain your principal over a period of time and maybe even grow it a little bit. It wasn't brain surgery. The idea is if I can make 5, 6, 7% every year and I'm pulling 4 or 5% out for income, then all I'm doing is pulling the cream off the crop, right? It doesn't take a scientist to be able to figure out how that could work over the long haul. But what happens when you get a big market downturn? So here's a person, has $500,000 in savings. They're trying to take 5% out for income, which is about $25,000 per year. Okay, no problem so far. Markets are cooperating. They're making 5, 6, 7%. But all of a sudden, we have a 2008-like year, and the market drops 50%, drops to half its value. If I'm now that person that needs that income, I still need $25,000 for income. Now, as a percentage, what does it look like? It's now 10% of my portfolio. How am I going to grow that back? Because now, remember before I said all I had to do is make 5-6% every year while I'm pulling out 4 or 5, right? Now I got to grow it by greater than 10% as I take 10% out from here on out. That means I got to get 10, 11, 12% year after year. Now, if I'm in retirement or near retirement, how much risk am I taking at this point in my life? I'm typically in conservative investments, trying to get 10, 11, 12% year after year after year consistently to try to grow what I had back. That's going to be tough, folks. That's going to be tough. So I talked about this earlier. We get all these income plans. They make a growth rate assumption that you're going to make this certain amount every year, and it looks good on paper, but the paper ain't worth what it's written if you have anything like this that happens and the market takes a big downturn, and now how does that plan work? Not very well. Now I also want to just point out one other thing. If I have $500,000, it drops to half its value, and it dropped 50%, that means the next year I got to get 100% just to grow it back. How realistic is that going to be in a very short period of time? Not very likely. So again, I encourage you, if you're somebody that, is concerned about these mistakes that you can make and you want to make sure you're positioned right, you're getting the services you need that are necessary in your retirement planning, then give us a call. We'd be glad to sit down with you and show you kind of how we're handling things in this market environment we find ourselves in. Thank you.
Today's retirement challenges can be mastered. Knowledge is power because you can confidently plan ahead and make educated financial decisions for a successful and comfortable retirement. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. And we invite you to an informative and exciting live event with a complimentary gourmet dinner. You'll learn highlights of the new Tax Reform Act, the difference between the fiduciary and suitability standard of care, how an IRA gets taxed to a surviving spouse, how two similar portfolios can end up with two drastically different results, what a bull market is and how long it can last, and much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, June 4th at Big Buck Brewery in Gaylord. Wednesday, June 5th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Tuesday, June 11th at the Evergreen Resort in Cadillac. Or Thursday, June 13th at Stafford's Bayview Inn in Petoskey. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and fills quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Don't miss this important live event. Educated financial decisions. Call 888-608-5825 today.
Welcome back to Retiring Well. Larry's been doing a great job talking about the possible mistakes and things that can be missed as you're planning for your retirement or in your retirement. And we often say retirement's like 20 to 30 years of unemployment. And so this is a big thing to plan for, and it's something that you don't want to have a mistake in if you can avoid it, and how powerful those mistakes may be to impact not only a short term but long term for you and maybe children or grandchildren left behind with legacies and stuff like that. John, I know you were just sharing with me today a story of a client you worked with recently and kind of their situation, and it was really interesting how it kind of tied right into with this, because they kind of experienced that mistake. Now fortunately it didn't sound like it hurt them too bad, but it left a lot of, I guess, unrest in them over many years.
Yeah, that's the case, Art, is they'd been working with this advisor for nearly a decade, and ultimately the advisor or the client was sort of talking about how just didn't feel right all the way along, but basically had proposed, hey, here's what I'm looking for, and the advisor said, well, here's what'll work for you. And later, we had a sit down and we were talking through their situation and basically said, well, here's maybe the way I might approach that a little bit different, and ultimately laid that out. And here's the client sort of saying, this is exactly what I've been trying to accomplish within the portfolio, but my advisor said that wasn't possible. And so what we've learned through that is that there's different types of advisors and different licensing and all that goes along with it, and those different standards that you follow. And within that, I mean, it can be eye-opening for some folks when they sit down and talk through with a different second set of eyes on it.
Right. And I think one of the things, John, that you had talked about with these folks is not just focusing on the investments. You listened, learned what they were trying to accomplish, and also what really I guess they were willing to risk, they were willing to take, and what they really wanted this money to do. They also had some real estate outside of this and stuff like that, and how different what that previous advisor was trying to get them to do versus just working with what they have and trying to set them up for the goals they were trying to accomplish.
Right, yeah, I mean, the advisor was continuing to say, oh, you got to sell that real estate and invest with me, and I was looking at that saying, that's a great investment to keep holding that, and it had been in the family for decades, and so why would you ever want to sell that? Instead, okay, let's see what goals you have, and let's help you try and accomplish those goals. And along the path, we brought up things like tax planning that had never been addressed before, and so we were able to start looking at how could we potentially be converting upwards of $10,000 a year in a lower tax bracket, as far as from a long-term planning perspective. And they said that ultimately that makes perfect sense for what they were trying to do.
And that's important. One of the big things I think so much of this industry involves in is talking about the investments themselves, what the returns were, what risk you have, all this. And granted, that is very important, but there's so much more to this with tax planning, income planning. What incomes do you need or want in retirement, and what is that going to cost you from a tax basis, or how can you better prepare yourself for the future?
Right, and this client, I mean, they know math, and they basically were looking at their statements, and they looked at sort of the 5-year annualized return, and it showed there 2.5%. And so here they were taking on more risk than they really wanted to be, and ultimately getting returns where we could basically show them, okay, there's now with the different fixed rates that are out there in the world today, you can accomplish better than that without taking on the risks. And so that's where it just comes back to understanding sort of where your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, and just allowing us to get a second set of eyes, give you a second opinion on sort of what you're doing, and see if there's different ways that we can look at, not just the investments, but understanding your income plan, looking at taxes and what role that plays, getting into like the estate planning and understanding what you have there, looking at the insurance, health insurance, life insurance, all those long-term care insurance, all those different areas that come up during your retirement planning years, and just ultimately need to have some type of cohesive plan to know that you're going to be okay in retirement.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are not 100% sure that you're confident and comfortable with your retirement plan, or you're concerned maybe you are making one of these mistakes, give us a call. We'd love to have us give you a second opinion of your retirement and walk through that to make sure you are truly on pace to be able to enjoy the retirement that you've always wanted. Thank you and have a great week.